Time for another review of what I did in the Nasdaq on Wednesday, 5th November 2025. On this candle, I went long on this candle at 7 a.m. pre-market. So I'm going to be talking about my logic, what I did, how I reacted, and the outcome. Yeah, the logic was I have some levels here that are going to be salient. The low of this previous week open gap, Monday's 27th low, and we have the high here, previous week open gap, October 27th, Monday's high. Yeah, after this, then I have this Tuesday's candle, previous day's candle graded. We have the high, the upper quadrant, the midpoint lower quadrant, and the low. So we at price action was here at 7 a.m. The logic was I wanted to see price trade back above this new day open gap, this new week, previous week's open gap, and at least to the 25%. That's the lower quadrant of this Tuesday's candle. Some confluences were the time of the month, the range in price action. Time of the month, I'm expecting price to consolidate a bit. Market environment is bullish too, so after this large down move and more downside Asia going into the London session, I wanted to see price retrace, short-term retracement. We also have this current new day open gap that price was below, so all these were draw on price action higher. I had some levels here on the 1 hour time frame I'll drop down to as well. Also had this new week open gap. We're below the opening price of the week. That was also one of the confluences as well. So I'll drop down to the 15. This is the new day open gap for 5th November. That's today's new day open gap. I took the trade at 7 o'clock. That's this candle here. I wanted to see price trade to these levels here. And we had this move as I was watching price action pre-market. I was watching price action pre-market and we had this move up to this level here, just above the new day open gap, making a high. I had just one contract and I closed my position here because I did not want to weather the uncertainty of the opening price of price action, because I had just one contract. If I had two contracts on, I would have closed one and held for the other. But this was around the midpoint of this previous week's open gap high, and the previous week's open gap low. And I was seated watching price action pre-market, so when I got this high, making the high of the day at this time, 8:30, coupled with the uncertainty, as I was sitting, I just took off my positions here. for about 120 point run in the Nasdaq, and then at the open of price action, we shall switch back to the switch to regular trading hours later in the video. We had the down move testing this previous week's low gap, previous week's open gap low, and then we had this extra move here. This was my expectation for the day, but I also had this high I was watching just to see what price action would do. Let's see what will happen in price action. So I'll put a marker on this high, and I'll put a marker on this high as well. I would also attach an execution video or a take profit video. So I was watching this setup. There's a silver bullet setup here at the low of this candle here. Yeah, that was interesting to see. I did not participate in this. I was just watching to see, reading price. Yeah. On the 1 hour time frame, at the 9:30 open, price went below the previous hour candle and kept on making higher highs on the 1 hour before retracing back to the high of this candle for the close of the day. Retraced. This is the high of the previous day's candle, Tuesday's candle, that was graded on the daily time frame, and this was the low of the body of the candle. Retraced to 0.5 of it. Yeah, so I'll put on some executions now. Drop down back to the 15 minutes. Yeah, enter the position here. This candle's close. Then I exited the position here when price grabbed this high. I had my take profit just above, and then I had my stops at this low for 100 points, and as price was pressing higher for the pre-market, I was adjusting my stops because I didn't want to erode my profits after sitting and waiting this long. So I had my take profit here, and yeah, we traced back to this low, then we pressed higher for the rest of the day. I'll switch to the regular trading hours. This was the previous session close. We had the low, traded below the low, and I thought we were going to go for this high, the previous session's high, but failed to reach it. Then we fell back to the high of this new week open gap. Yeah, that was nice to see. It was a nice algorithmic delivery. I don't have any hard pressed opinion for the rest of the week, but this was a high probability setup where I felt like price might retrace, or that I could put on risk, that I could frame a low risk entry to take me to these levels and possibly these levels for the day. was the trade for the day. Yeah, I'd like to bring the DXY in this discussion for a while. We've been pressing higher all week last week and previous weeks. So we had this type of holding pattern here, which I think was the reason why the Nasdaq pressed higher for the day. So that is just to note for experience purposes, because when there's some type of consolidation, Nasdaq can move between PDRAs. That's it for this review.